Hello everybody, this video is going to be fundamentals video number 8, and it's going to be backtracking a little bit to CSing. And the reason why I want to backtrack a little bit is because this is a warm-up drill that I do every single day, that I think you guys should look to do as well. That kind of gets you in the muscle memory flow of properly maintaining lane equilibrium as well as just last hitting animations. And I want to talk about a bunch of little things that I think a lot of you wouldn't think about when it comes to creep wave control, as well as making sure you get as many CS and denies as possible. So what I'm going to be doing is watching a replay of my own warm-up, pausing and talking to you guys about exactly what I'm thinking during it, because it's not possible to do that live. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Banana slam jam.
So the first things first is that you go to the Learn tab, and you go to Tier 3, and you go to Last Hit Trainer, as you saw right there. And what I choose to do every day is just pick a hero that I either feel like I'm not CSing with very well, a hero I haven't played in a little while, so that I'm a little bit unfamiliar with their last hit animation, and I just get my warm-up in for the day. And it's honestly done me wonders when I just haven't played a hero in a little while, or I know I want to play a hero that day, to just do this drill until I get either 85 to 90% CS. I kind of vary that based on how high a base damage the hero has, as well as how nice their attack animation is. But until I do that, I usually don't start playing. So let's go ahead and get into it. So today I just chose Wraith King because I played him yesterday, and even though it seems like he's really high base damage, he's got a crit and everything, his attack animation's a little wonky, and I just wanted to have a little bit better feel for it. So first things first, if you leave all of the creeps as normal without blocking at all, what ends up happening is this creep of yours that's in front and their creep of theirs that's in front will often be dying at the exact same time. And one of the most crucial first steps of learning to get as many CS and denies as possible is making sure creeps are not dying at the same time, because the number one limiting factor is that you cannot hit two things at once. So what you see here that I like to do in the habit of is block all but one of my creeps, such that the lane will be slightly pushing into me, as well as I'm staggering when creeps are going to die. The next step is that every single time you can fit an extra attack in, you want to be able to attack either ally creeps or enemy creeps. A lot of this comes down to, can I maintain lane equilibrium like I talked about in my videos? So the first thing I want to point out to you that I will always do is attack as often as possible while getting all the CS. And this is super important, and we're going to see why. So let's go ahead and watch myself play the first creep wave, solely focusing on the fact that I'm attacking as often as possible. So the reason why this is so important is that just like in the CS trainer and in the regular game mode, there's creeps that spawn every 30 seconds. And what happens is if you leave the creeps to their own devices, they're not going to kill each other fast enough. And so what happens is, instead of getting a 4v4 of creeps, you're going to suddenly have creeps left over from the previous creep wave. They're going to throw a wrench in the equation, because when we're talking about controlling the lane, as well as manipulating how we want it to be, the less creeps, the better, because I, as a hero, am doing a higher percentage of the damage that's being output, so I can control what I want more easily if there's less creeps involved. So notice how after all of those attacks that I did, killing things as fast as possible, the creeps are going to reset perfectly. Notice how on the second creep wave, we're right back where we started. And this is super important if you want to be able to maintain lane equilibrium. And it's a really big emphasis that even in your real games with real opponents, that the more often you're able to attack creeps, that means the more control you have in the lane. So obviously it's going to be a bit different if you have an enemy hero harassing you, maybe you're at threat of death or whatever, but it's super important you understand the more often you can squeeze in those attacks, the better. And it's not good enough to just attack to get the deny, to just attack to get the last hit. So now that I've brought to your attention that you're supposed to be attacking as often as possible, it's not as simple as I made it out to be. You also have to make sure that you're equally attacking enemy creeps as well as allied creeps and keeping the lane exactly where it is while you're doing so. So what that requires you to do is constantly be monitoring whether or not the lane's pushing outward or whether or not it's pushing towards you, and making sure that you keep it even. So if it's pushing away from you, you're making sure you're denying as often as possible, and if it's pushing towards you, you're attacking enemy creeps as often as possible. And I like to have the lane ideally pushing slightly towards me, because the way to fix that is attacking enemy creeps instead of pushing away from me, which is denying. Because if it's pushing away from you, you can't fix it until the creeps are half HP. So you have a lot less control over the lane pushing than you do over it pushing against you, right? So it's much better on average to have it slightly pushing into you. So notice here, that's why I blocked the creep in front like I mentioned, and then I immediately attack it. So what this understanding requires, at every second in the lane, understanding whether or not the lane is pushing or pulling against you. So right now, the lane is slightly pushing towards me. So I'm going to fit in an extra attack on this creep here. So the way we can choose to attack is whether or not we think we can attack the creep that's lowest. So ideally, if I want to push the lane back out, I would attack the creep that's lowest on the enemy team, such that I would kill it faster. But notice here that if I had attacked this melee creep that was low, it would have died to the creeps that are of mine that are hitting it before. So I actually fit in an extra attack to the one next to it. Now, the lane is about even, slightly pushing towards me, which is exactly what we want. So after I kill off that creep, I'm now going to go to my own creep, making sure I'm attacking at all times, and then attacking my own creep. And what this also does is notice how this creep is getting attacked by 2 enemy creeps, and this creep is getting attacked by 2 ally creeps, and they're about the same HP. So the last thing I want to do is leave both of them at the same HP, getting hit by 2 creeps. So it's a combination of making sure the lane's slightly pushing into me and making sure 2 creeps don't die at the exact same time. So notice how right now, since the lane's slightly pushing into me after I attacked my own creep, same idea, I would want to attack an enemy creep. So same intuition, I would want to attack the enemy creep that's lowest. But if I were to attack this creep right here, then what's going to happen is both the creeps are going to die at the exact same time. And that's bad, because I'll miss either the deny or the last hit. So instead, I choose to attack the creep that's full HP, just to make things a bit more even. And then I'm going to kill off my own. And notice how they're perfectly staggered, right? We kill this one off. And then we're going to kill the enemy creep off. And notice how, because of that extra little attack that we did on this creep, how the balance of these 2 creeps is just that much closer, right? It's like, instead of that creep being absolutely full health and mine being about half, that creep is about 3/4, while mine's about half. Which, the closer to lane equilibrium you can have, the better at all times. And if you guys have learned from your own games, lane equilibrium spirals out of control pretty quickly. If you have the lane slightly pushing for you or slightly pushing against you, just a little bit too much, it can get really out of control. And once you lose control, it's very difficult to get it back. So once again, we're going to do the same thing that we did before. Attack our own creep, and then we attack the enemy creep, because the difference between the 2 is significant enough that they're not going to die at the same time. And then we kill it off. And it may seem like I'm overcomplicating this, but this is all the thought that is required in order to play this perfectly and get it such that the lane is exactly where you want it. Because right now we're in an interesting spot. My range creep is slightly lower HP than theirs, but it's on a high ground, which means that their enemy creep is going to miss 25% of the time. So if my creep was the same HP when these 2 creeps started attacking each other, that would actually cause lane equilibrium issues. So what ends up happening is we now have 2 creeps that are left, both attacking each other, and I have to account for the fact that the enemy creep is going to miss 25% of the time. So I kill mine off first. Notice how I put that extra attack in. That is in order to desync the 2 creeps. And now I have time to go kill this one. And we're right back where we started. And that's 1 creep wave. So the goal of this entire thing, let's take a brief pause in the middle of this video, is to tell you that there are so many weird things that can happen in a creep wave that make you miss CS and denies. And the goal of this video is to make it so that you recognize these situations when they show up for you. And eventually, you'll see little triggers that create these situations, and because you've practiced and because of trial and error, you'll know how to handle these situations. So I've already given you the first creep wave and exactly how you're supposed to navigate it. So right now we're on the second creep wave, and we're in an interesting situation. So we're going to play it on super slow-mo, and we're going to talk about the situation we're in. My creeps focused down an enemy creep. So what happens here is that there are 4 ally creeps and 3 enemy creeps. And so I immediately want to attack my own creep. Now I have a choice. I can attack this creep, which is half HP, or this creep that is half HP. How do I choose which one I want to attack? It's quite simple, actually. You choose the one that is getting attacked by the enemy unit that is going to die, or the enemy units aren't attacking it. That's the two options. So in this specific instance, this melee creep is attacking here, and this range creep is attacking here, but this melee creep is going to die, right? So the reason why this is so important is because this makes it so the creeps aren't dying at the same time. If I were to try to deny this one, as opposed to this one, it's very likely that this creep, as well as this creep, will die at the exact same time, which means I'm going to miss a deny or a last hit. So I choose to attack this one, and what happens is I attack it twice, and then I stop to get the last hit on the enemy creep, and since my creep is no longer getting attacked by anything, it's quite an easy setup for the deny that I already hit twice. And notice how if I had hit this one instead, it would have died at almost the exact same time as the other one. And instead I get all the CS and denies. So another habit you get into is monitoring whether or not the enemy range creep is going to miss, being prepared for it to miss. So right here, notice how I'm ready to deny my own creep. The enemy range creep is attacking, and I know that once the enemy range creep lands its attack, I'm going to get the deny. But I have to wait until that moment. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be ready to attack, but I'm also ready for it to miss. And you see here it misses, so I cancel my attack. And then I wait for it to finish its attack, and then I kill it. And this is something where if you don't develop muscle memory for it, you're going to catch yourself slipping and not thinking about it. So remember what I talked about on the first creep wave, where usually we want to block one of our creeps in front such that they will die at separate times, so that the two creeps on each side will not die at the same time. However, you're not going to always be able to do that middle of the way through the game, as now we have already hit 24 CS. We're now at that spot. So here's where I incorrectly identify something. So in this spot, notice how I have a melee creep here, and they have a melee creep here, both of which are getting attacked. And in this case, I have to desynchronize them. One of them has to die before the other, otherwise I'm going to miss the creeps. And what's so important about this is you have to monitor how many creeps are hitting each one. And it's not enough to see like what their health is. Like if we look at the 2 HPs right now, you'd think I'm supposed to hit my creep because it's lower than the enemy creep, so I want to make it so it's desynchronized. However, if we look, we see that 3 enemy creeps are attacking my creep. 1, 2, and 3. This melee creep right here is attacking this creep, which means my melee creep is only getting hit by 3 creeps. However, their melee creep is getting attacked by 1, 2, 3, 4, which means if I had recognized that right when the creep waves met each other, instead of waiting to deny my own creep when it got below half, I would have started attacking the enemy creep, even though it's going to slightly push the wave. That's not ideal. It's the only option I have in order to make these 2 creeps not die at the same time. But instead, I missed that, and I tried to deny my own creep, and even though my creep started out lower, and I attack it twice, this is exactly what we've been trying to prevent this entire time, where I get this deny, but the enemy creep is dying at the exact same time, and I don't have enough time to attack again. So this right here is a similar situation, where I have a creep that's about full HP, and they have a creep that's about 1/3 HP. My creep's getting attacked by 3 creeps. This creep's only getting attacked by 1. A similar situation, though. If you watch this, unmanipulated, these 2 creeps would die at about the same time. So in this case, I recognize that my creep's getting attacked by more creeps, so I actually wait to attack it. Notice how instead of attacking the lower HP one like I did last time, I attack the creep that's getting attacked by more creeps. And then I get this deny. And then because I attacked it twice instead of just waiting till it was in deny range, I'm able to get both creeps because I desynchronized them just enough in order to get both. So this next spot is much more niche, but it happens a pretty good amount. You'd be surprised. So what happens here is that I always want to be trying to identify which creep is going to die first. That's especially important with the 2 range creeps towards the end, and it matters a lot which hill you're on. So if we're over here, that means that your range creep is going to run into their creep wave earlier than vice versa. But if it's on your wave, notice how my creep wave runs into their range creep first. And what that means is that if both creeps are going to die at about the same time, you should kill the one to die to the second creep wave. So what that means is when it's on my hill, I'm going to look to kill the enemy range creep first. If it's on their hill, I'm going to look to kill mine first. So what we see here is that my goal would always be to kill mine first, because that means the lane's slightly pushing into me. But that's not always going to be possible. So we see here that I want to kill mine first, right here, similar to last time. But then their range creep misses. So I instantly realize that because their range creep missed right there, that if I were to then try to kill my own range creep again first, that both creeps would die at the exact same time, which means I'm going to miss one. So I immediately realize this, something you can always get better at looking out for, and I turn my attention to the enemy range, and I go kill it off first. Such that, notice how because I kill the one that has my creep wave hitting it, or if it was on the other hill, vice versa, I'm now able to just go back casually and kill this creep because it's not getting attacked by anything. So the goal of this video and this drill that I do pretty much every day is that I want you guys to, and myself, to be able to do this stuff as best as possible during my games, or during your games. And there's a lot of other factors that go on in the game, and most of my educational content, no matter what bracket I'm at, 6K, 1K, new players, aims towards breaking things down, making it so that you focus on one thing at a time to ensure that that gets put into your subconscious so that you can focus on other things. I feel like a lot of this stuff that I'm talking to you about in this CS trainer applies a ton in real games. It's just sometimes because there's no hero, or there's an actual hero against you, you don't have the ability to hit the creeps as often as you would during this, and you also may not get to hit the creeps at all because you're getting harassed. But anytime you do have control of the lane, you can use these kits or use these tools, and you can also understand what to do when you have control of the lane. Because a lot of people I watch, especially at lower MMRs, they'll have complete control of the lane, and they won't hit creeps very often. They'll kind of just sit there. And that's the biggest thing that this teaches you, is the more often you're hitting creeps, and also understanding how you can control the creep wave makes you feel powerful. It makes you understand how much influence you have on how many last hits and denies and where the creep wave is going to stand. And that's the goal of this, is to maximize that so that when you're in your games and you have the ability to use it, that you can. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you learned something. I do this every single day. I hope you may take this habit up yourself. I know I talked all about how many times you want to attack and how the better it is to attack, all that kind of stuff. And what a lot of people I don't think realize is that the easier the drill is based on how high a base damage your hero has. First off, obviously because you can get the CS, but also because you have to attack less times in order to control the lane. And then also how fast your hero attacks, because that means that the creeps can be closer, like slightly less desynchronized, and you can still get the last hits, and you can also attack more often between last hits. So the hardest heroes are the ones with like 45 to 50 base damage, and they also have like a pretty terrible attack speed. So examples would be like Spectre, Razor, Drow, these type of heroes, especially the ranged heroes that have projectiles. So the harder it is for you based on the hero you choose, you should have lower expectations of what exact percentage you're going to get. I aim for at least 85% on any hero. I don't recommend practicing with techies. I don't think it actually helps you. And yeah, that's it.